Well, hello to our listeners from around the world. I want to welcome you again to another edition of Soulivity Today, broadcasting live from our studios right here in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., of course, and on KMET 1490 AM radio for all of you guys out on the west coast of our country. How are you guys today? Listen, we've got an amazing show for you today. We're going to be talking about the Ohio special election and what that means for the rest of the country. But I've got two amazing co-hosts that are the perfect choices to talk about this with my dear friends, Sheila Applegate and Dr. Chanel DeGuzman. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Brian.
How has your week been so far? I'll go to you, Sheila, so, first and foremost.
Well, I was on yesterday, so we'll just talk about last night. And I guess, my heart goes out to Maui and Lahaina. That kind of dictated my day yesterday because we have a friend that was in Lahaina. And so I'm doing well, but that kind of, things like this take the center of attention. I thought it was interesting after our show yesterday about having joy in the doom, right? So
Yeah.
I'm practicing experiencing all the feels and being in joy today.
Yeah, want to make sure that we send out our some love and support to those folks. I was telling you guys before about this wonderful centuries-old tree that has been part of the culture of Hawaii and specifically Maui for a long time that was just devastated by that fire. So this is just so agonizing on so many different levels in terms of how that fire kind of devastated different dimensions of the whole Hawaiian experience. And so we pray for a speedy end to the fire as well as a speedy recovery and to help those people get back on their feet. Dr. Chanel, we have not talked since last week. How have you been?
I know, my gosh. Well, I have been absolutely incredibly wonderful, especially Brian, Sheila, because tomorrow's my birthday. So I am excited. Yes, I'm excited. And I was going to give a challenge out to my favorite listeners to join me at 30 tomorrow for my birthday workout, cross workout. So I'm excited.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow.
beautiful.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well,
Yay.
so what do you have any plans yet for tomorrow?
That's the first big plan is at 5:30 a.m. And then there is a jazz concert. Brian, you know Kimmy Horn. So she puts on an annual jazz concert. So I'm going to see if my wonderful husband, Gary, who's probably listening right now, is going to be taking me to see Kimmy Horn this weekend for my birthday.
That's such a great show. It's the Kimmy Horn show, right? The Kimmy Horn jazz.
Yes, it's her jazz show.
And it's in Southfield in Michigan. Okay, all right. I just want to.
And it's completely free too. So it's on the big lawn in Southfield, I guess at the Civic Center. So it should be really, really nice.
I went to that a couple of years
ago. I'm not honestly a jazz lover.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Kimmy is just phenomenal. So.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Do we also want to make sure that we do a plug because you're at a special place today? I always want to make sure that we plug that special place.
Thank you, Brian. So I am in Livonia on location at the Business Innovative Lab at 38221 Plymouth Road in Livonia. Owner is Lisa Manini. She's the president of Accelerate. So wanted to give a shout out to Lisa for allowing me to use this space. I have a 9 o'clock training here. And she has a wonderful workspace. So if you're ever in need of co-working space and you're near Livonia, check her out.
Oh man, this is great. That's great. Okay, well that's cool. Okay, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Listen, we have a very, as I said before, we have a very special topic today. This is one of those important ones where if all of you out there want to get in on commenting and telling us how you feel about it, please do. One of the more important debates in our country right now is about the women's right to choose. So when it comes to abortion, in many states, even necessary medications for like contraceptive, they're all like a political issue right now. And in the great state of Ohio, voters went to the polls this past Tuesday regarding a special election that was closely aligned with the outcome of another upcoming referendum, whether abortion should be legal there, which is part of the November election cycle. But let's learn a little bit more first, okay?
Voters reject Ohio Issue 1, shutting down an effort to make it harder to change the state constitution.
At last check, Ohioans turned down Issue 1 by nearly 14 percentage points, almost 350,000 votes. Let's take a look at how this all played out. But just to note, every precinct hasn't reported in just yet. Turnout for the election exceeds 30%. More than 2 million votes have been counted so far. Nearly 700,000 Ohioans voted early.
And you see the numbers on your screen there. So now the question is, what comes next? We're already hearing from people on both sides.
WCPO 9 News anchor Brett Bugansky joins us live now. And Brett, what kind of reaction are you getting?
So groups like the AFL-CIO and Ohio physicians are celebrating these results, and they even called out advocates of Issue 1, saying the campaign was deceiving and that tonight's results are a wake-up call that this fight is not over.
At the end of the day, the no vote for me is a more personal thing.
Anissa Bennett voted in person Tuesday at St. Vivian in Springfield Township, one of the 296 polling locations in Hamilton County.
With having young adult daughters, I don't want their rights infringed upon, and I want them to have the same rights I had when I was, 23 and 25.
Issue 1 would have raised the majority threshold to amend the Ohio Constitution from a 50% plus 1 to a 60% majority.
We could really tell that people were on our side, on the no side, and were angry about it. And frankly, angry about even having to vote on this.
Some acknowledge November's abortion vote was their motivation for coming out to vote.
What we're deciding in November, is, I'm very strong pro-life, and it's very important. That's why this was so important.
There are a lot of Republicans that are pro-life that may have voted no on this issue tonight that will be with us shoulder to shoulder come November.
On CNN Tuesday night, Mike Anadakis from Ohio Right to Life didn't concede Issue 1 failed, but he said the August special election was a battle worth having. University of Cincinnati political science professor David Niven said Tuesday's election was already an uphill battle for backers of Issue 1 and looked at the messaging as a deciding factor for why the majority of voters said no.
It's a hard sell to tell people, the majority shouldn't matter.
And David Niven said every time abortion has been on the ballot across the country, whether it's places like Kentucky or Kansas, voters overwhelmingly said yes to upholding reproductive rights. Jasmine Evan.
And so, guys, wow. I want to make sure that when we're talking about the special election today, that yes, it has to do with abortion, but it also has to do with I believe there's a disconnect between the majority of where the majority of Americans want to go with rights and freedoms and our political system, small p, right? And so my first question to both of you on this is, we know that the reason behind the special election was partisan, and that is because there's an upcoming a referendum that's part of the general election on affirming a woman's right to choose. So they wanted to change the threshold so that more people had to come out and vote for that to pass, because they know it's going to pass with over 51% of the vote. How do we feel about that state even having a special election like that? in the first place, because you could hear the woman that was on there saying, you know, she was mad that she had to come out and vote for that anyway. So, Sheila, I'll go to you first.
Well, to me, like you said, this is not about abortion. And really, the whole right to life has not been about abortion the whole time. If you go back into the early days of the women's movement when that came forward. So to me, it's a smokescreen that gets people emotional. And the real vote was whether people in Ohio were going to willingly give up their right to be heard and to listen to as a majority. And so, was it right to put that out? No. I mean, why would it even ever be right to say, let's vote? And I mean, it's the people who are putting it out are clearly stating, we don't think you know enough to understand what you're voting for, or that you want us to listen to the majority. So, I think the ridiculousness that's been rising up in our government lately is coming to the surface, and the smokescreen is going away.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. Chanel, what about you? What are your thoughts right now?
Well, right now, I totally agree, La. And what comes to my mind is you cannot be asleep at the wheel. You cannot be asleep at the wheel. This could have come through. There could have not been enough mayhem. Maybe Sheila, in disguise, maybe, you know, having the abortion issue did, you know, ignite the emotionalism for people to wake up and say, whoa, I got to get out there and vote, or I'm just going to lose my rights, my freedoms to be heard altogether come November. And so to me, this was a slick, underhanded, I think the guy said, misleading campaign that could have stolen, well, I don't know, I'm not going to use that word because I don't want to use that word, but it could have, you know, just blindsided people with, especially in August, you know, when typically the numbers are lower, but in fact, these numbers actually, the turnout was actually higher, or, you know, it was a heightened response. And so, yeah, just a reminder that rights could have been infringed upon. And so you cannot be asleep at the wheel.
Yeah, you know, I can't help but think that there's listen, let me back up. The reason why I'm doing this show today is to make sure that people understand that your voices are power. And that, again, our show is about empowering people to take action in their lives and to utilize all the power that they have, right? And so making sure that in like special elections like this and not being asleep at the wheel and you know, doing your civic duty by going out and voting your conscience when things like this are happening is very, very important. So we just wanted to make sure that people understood that your voice is power and that you have to go out here and use it. Let's take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to talk about this idea of, you know, are referendums the way to go, right? I mean, how do we even feel about that? And so we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back in about 2 minutes or so. We'll be right back. Soulivity Today is brought to you by Assume control over your weight and broader health with the 80 Bites program by Physical Mind Institute.
For 50 years, we've been told, load up your plate with veggies. Load them up, because all this spinach, look at it, all the spinach is only 100 calories. But avoid fat, because a tiny sliver of butter is also 100 calories. So spinach is good, butter is bad, right? But not today. Now we're told, put butter on everything, even in your coffee. Why? Because fat doesn't spike insulin as carbs do. And stretching the stomach with all those veggies unbalances our digestive hormones. So eat healthy today means fat, fasting, stomach control. Right here's the stomach. Forget calories. Hormones rule, and 80 bites is the solution.
Are you ready to take that first step towards true, unwavering inner happiness? Are you like thousands of people who have everything they need, not want, but need, and still can't seem to find happiness and fulfillment in their lives? If so, the Steps to Happiness show is for you. On my show, you will learn about the principles and practices that lead to true inner happiness. Because guess what? It isn't found in our external environment, but within ourselves instead. Together with my guests, we will explore the latest physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being practices. And together, we'll advise you on the actionable steps you can take towards a happier, more fulfilled, authentic life. So I invite you to join me each week on Soulivity TV on the Steps to Happiness show with me, Teresa Greco.
And we're back with more of Soulivity Today with my very special friends and co-host, Dr. Chanel DeGuzman and Sheila Applegate. Good morning to both of you again. Yeah, there's this underlying kind of the pull that I have around this issue, especially what happened in Ohio, right? Where there's going to be a special election. People are going to vote on affirming. I mean, there's a general election in November. They're going to vote on whether or not a woman has a right to choose an abortion, as well as contraceptives. I think contraceptives is also on the ballot there in November as well. I could be wrong on that. I'll check on that. But then the other political party that doesn't want that to happen has a special election in an attempt to make it harder for those people to vote on the general election, which most people know is going to pass. That referendum is going to pass. There was an interesting clip that I found from MSNBC's Morning Joe, where former President Bill Clinton was talking about referendums in general. Let's take a look at that, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
We were over commemorating the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday agreements, which brought peace, a historic deal that brought peace to Northern Ireland. I talked to Bill Clinton, and I said, we've got two huge issues right now, guns and abortion.
Yeah.
Where Republicans are in the minority.
The wrong side.
The most Americans want, 90% of Americans want background checks, 70% of Americans want access to abortion. What should be done? This is what Bill Clinton said about the importance of referendums like the one last night in Ohio.
If you look at after Roe v. Wade was repealed, the people that went, like in Michigan, they went straight to the ballot box. In Kansas, straight to the ballot box. I think if I urged this approach way back in the 90s on trying to restrict assault weapons. But it's a lot of trouble. It's costly, it takes time. And we've never done the ballot box as much as we should have. In Colorado in 2000, when President Bush beat Al Gore fairly decisively, I think by 9 points or something, Colorado voted for background checks at gun shows by 70% in a referendum. Because a big problem with gun owners is they say, well, what these people want to do sounds reasonable, but it's a slippery slope. How do I know we'll be limited? And I argued that we ought to just put it all up for referendums and let people vote on it. Let them try to, and then neighbors have to talk to neighbors. They have to treat each other like people. Because, on my side, there are too many people who favor a lot of these gun measures who don't know any of these country people. Right. And they don't understand that, most of them, you would be glad to have as neighbors if your house caught on fire. Because they'd come over and take your kids to safety and come back and help you put the fire out.
Referendum.
Wow. What a radical concept, democracy.
So, ladies, what say you? Sheila, Chanel, I'll go to you first. Do we agree, disagree, kind of agree?
Brian, I kind of agree. I kind of agree with the concept that the general or the will of the people seems like most heard through a direct decision by a referendum. However, I guess there has to be, I want to know the motivation. I want to obviously be educated and know what is the underlying issue for the referendum. But on face value, it seems like it would be getting to the will of the people, giving the majority of the people their freedom and right to be heard.
Sheila, what about you? What are your thinking? What are your thoughts?
Well, and I'm not sure I understand it all completely either, but my understanding is this referendum that was just voted upon, it was to change the state constitution. And the Constitution is here to protect the people from the legislation. So the referendum is the only way that they could have tried to take more power, because what they're trying to do is take away a protection that the people have. So I think in this situation, it's absolutely essential that that is what has to happen, rather than them just being able to change the Constitution. That would make no sense. And then my other side of it is part of what that 65% was that people did not vote for, like giving up their right to a majority. It was for situations like this where the government, the legislator, is putting through a law that people don't agree with. And then if you have a majority rule, then you are able to stop that law from going through. So in those scenarios, I absolutely think it's essential. And that's the part that I understood from Ohio. When we get into this clip and we're talking about bringing new things up, I haven't done any research, so I don't really know, like Dr. Chanel just said, the whole level of ramifications with that.
I have, and I'm right there with both of you around this. And at the same time, I'm kind of remembering my history. There was a time at which most Americans agreed with things like separate but equal. They agreed with, especially down in the South, they agreed with the laws that were part of Jim Crow. Grandfather clauses, poll taxes, and all this kind of stuff. And at the same time, when we're doing polling around the things that former President Clinton was talking about, guns and abortion, right? The overwhelming majority of Americans poll favorably in the direction of, for instance, background checks, waiting periods, having databases of guns and that kind of thing. They overwhelmingly support a woman's right to choose, and and all the other like women's healthcare kinds of things, contraceptives and all that kind of stuff being part of insurance and that kind of thing. So I'm like back and forth because I think that we're talking a right to choose. I think that most states would probably pass that. And at the same time, I think that a lot of this stuff should be federalized. I mean, it should be a national law that affirms a woman's right to choose, period. And then it's over and done. I mean, we had Roe versus Wade, which was the law of the land for 50 years, 60 years. And, you know, and states were, you know, clipping away at that because there was no law in that, you know, that the Congress voted on that put that and enshrined it as settled law into our Constitution, as part of our Constitution, so it's laws and that kind of thing. So I'm like, yeah, I get it. And at the same time, it's like, I wonder if that's really the answer. Part of me is feeling like it's not the full thing, but only time will tell. And again, I mean, these are important subjects that I think all of us need to be talking about and letting our voice be known, because if you do feel that a woman's right to choose is the way to go, we all have a responsibility to let our elected officials know that that's what we want from them, and that there needs to be laws passed around that. Maybe referendums put on the table to make it happen. So, great discussion so far. Chanel, did you have another thought?
Yeah, Brian, I did, just in terms of what you were saying in terms of the federal law versus the state law. So for example, and you help me out, but in terms of marijuana law and jail time, the feds have a much more stringent laws on the books than some of the states. And, you know, some of the states have legalized marijuana. And so if we go along with the notion we were just talking, and if we made it, if it was federalized that marijuana is illegal, it's going to criminalize more and more people who are poor, etc. And so on the flip side, in that scenario, it would be a little different, right?
Right. And I think the again, the overwhelming majority of Americans believe marijuana should be legalized, not illegal, right?
Right.
And so again, it's you know, I think we've come to a point at which maybe some of the states, because they've legalized marijuana, where it's putting more pressure on the federal government to take some action on that. But again, I mean, you've got to have a majority in Congress and a president that's willing to go to the bat to sign that kind of bill. And it also means that Americans need to come out and say what's on their mind in terms of that, and not wait for, oh, well, we'll wait for our congressperson or our elected official in the state to do something and we'll just wait around and complain. It's like, no, we're going to take action, because when there's action, things actually happen. Like in Kansas, where everybody was like astounded that abortion was legalized there, almost 2.5 to 1 in a conservative Kansas. I mean, so, you know, it's again, this is an important topic, and it's more about people taking control of their political, small p, life and things that affect them directly. I mean, we all have mothers, daughters, sisters, aunts, you know, grandmothers, you know, that all have, in my belief, the right to choose and make decisions about their body at the end of the day. I mean, it's you know, men have that right. Why don't women have that right? And so, yeah. Why don't we take another break? I know this is a pretty intense topic, but sometimes it needs to be intense. And when we come back, we'll talk more about this and what this Ohio election kind of affirms for our nation and what it means. And so we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in about 2 minutes or so. We'll be right back. Soulivity Today is brought to you by Happy Travelers Tours and Old Vine Wine Tours. Satana products at our Go shop at go.soulivity.com.
Have you ever asked the question, if I was to be anything, what would I be? Regardless of money, regardless of status, beyond popularity and fame, living your passion, feeling your life has purpose. Soulivity is a space to nurture that which lives in all of us, a place where work can become play, and doing what we love creates the dreams of a lifetime.
Hello, we're back with more of Soulivity Today. We are talking about the special election in Ohio that occurred on Tuesday and what it means for the rest of America, not only in terms of a woman's right to choose, but in general, like what other referendums may be coming out in the future. And what does this all say in terms of what people really want, in terms of the majorities that in polling that have shown that they want certain things. Ladies, right after the Ohio special election, Narrow Pro-Choice America, part of a coalition that actually opposed issue 1, which was, no, we don't want you to expand the voting majority to pass a constitutional amendment there, had some important thoughts that I want to add to this discussion right now. They said Ohioans' support for abortion access and reproductive freedom was never in question. From defeating issue 1 tonight to submitting nearly twice the amount of signatures needed to get a measure protecting abortion access on the ballot in November, Ohio voters have made clear that they will settle for nothing less than reproductive freedom for all. They go on and say that Republicans should be ashamed of their efforts to subvert the will of the voters. Again, pretty important stuff here around, the power of the vote from those people and the reasoning behind this special election. One quick thing before I ask you guys a question on this. Before the special election that happened this month, the Republicans that are part of the majority in the state house there said, we're not going to have any more special elections. We want to be fair. We want to put it to the people in the general election and da-da-da-da-da. And within, I think something like 30 days after that, this one popped up. And it was very quick, very subversive. So question to both of you, what makes these issues so volatile? I mean, specifically in our political world. I mean, I have my thoughts about it, but I'd love to get yours. And Sheila, I'll go to you first.
Well, I think that the issues themselves that are brought to the forefront and talked about are, like I said earlier, the smokescreen. So in this election, not only was it an easy win for those people who did not want their rights subverted, but they also showed that 98%, I believe, of the people in the university community had
Yeah.
voted to keep the 50% majority or 51%. And so humans evolve, we evolve, we grow, we understand more. And the majority of the people in this country are not interested in going backwards, but we have one political group that is conservative. Conservatives either want to stay in where they are and not move forward, or in our case recently, move backwards. And so as that comes up, it's strengthening the others to speak up and to keep moving forward. And so these people, these Gen Zs and millennials and the younger generations that are voting, they are not going to put up with this stuff. And we are at the tail end as we age out these old paradigms.
I love that.
That's good. That's good, Sheila.
That's
Yeah,
good, Sheila.
you're talking
Yeah.
about aging out and the tail end. So if there's a preservation of that power, of that elitism, it's holding on to something that's fleeting, because as you said, the progression of human evolution and our higher consciousness, and these young people who do have what I say, a sense of right and wrong and morality at a different level as we are evolving, are not standing for this. And you can see it, like you said, at the universities. I just think that by and large, there's fear of the slipping of the power, because you can see the GOP, Brian, mega donor who spent millions on the ad campaign and in the political campaign, to prevent, to subvert, the vote, but he lost, right? Those dollars that normally would have such an influence in a political campaign or maybe a referendum, it was for naught. So they're going to see that money and power and wealth may not always rise to the top of the day, and that the majority and the will of the people is becoming loud and clear, and that we can see this is not going to continue, till eternity, because like you said, Sheila, there is a segment that is on the tail end of losing the power. And you can see, Brian, from the insurrection, there are only 2,000 rioters, but that was all just an outpouring of a political dynasty, with the Trump, that are more vocal, but it's still a small majority. And so we have to stay woke.
Yeah, sure. I completely agree with both of you. There was just to give people an idea too of the longitudinal kind of aspects of this. Back in the day under Ronald Reagan, when Ronald Reagan created Reaganomics and the trickle-down theory of economics, where if you empower businesses and you empower wealthy people, because they're the job creators, that the money will flow down into the middle class and then into the impoverished, so that they can have a not only a chance for a better life, but they'll have more money in their pocket. Well, there's been studies done, and the outcome of the study was like, duh. Of course, that didn't work. People who had money, they just kept having money. And so there's been a lot of people in terms of growing in attitudes around our economic system, and that we've moved to this extreme capitalism, right? Where the wealthy and the powerful and that have more wealth and more power, and that now it's infringing upon even our voices now, right? Because I look at this special election in Ohio as an attempt, like other attempts, to stifle the will of the people, to stifle the vote, the voice of the people. I mean, Ohio is a gerrymandered state, right? Where you already have African American and other people of color and other minorities' votes being squashed down. So you heighten up the level of the number of people that are required to pass a constitutional amendment, right? That means that only the people that have enough votes or enough gerrymandered votes that can pass stuff. But again, people got empowered, and they had more people vote in that special election than even in some presidential elections. So that's what I'm talking about in terms of people having that they're using their voice and their own power, and not waiting for someone else to do something for you, right? That you're seizing your own power, and you're using that power to move forward. There's another aspect of this that I think too that makes this so volatile, and that is the different attitudes about religion here, and that and again, I think, Sheila, you said this, and I want to get both of your thoughts about this. I think that's also a smokescreen to a certain degree, because I think people want to just stay in power. I think that at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. And so, why don't we take a quick break? And when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about this. But I want to get like your ideas about that from a final thought perspective after we come back, okay? So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in about a couple minutes. Hi there, this is Brian with Soulivity.com. I want to share some exciting news about our new Aspire Academy by Soulivity. Now, you probably want to know what the Aspire Academy by Soulivity is. Well, it exclusively connects you with people around the globe and who share the intense desire to improve themselves and create a better life for themselves today. There's classes, there's workshops, there's live events, and even more exclusively just for you. You see, I wanted you to have a safe space where you could grow, you can learn, and it would empower you in all aspects of your life, including your mind, your body, and your soul. So how do you get started? Well, it is so easy. First of all, the best part, joining Aspire Academy is absolutely free. Just click on the Join Now button, sign up, and begin your journey. As a special part of this invitation to you, there are some free courses that are available for you to try from our amazing roster of coaches and collaborators. It's our way of saying thank you for all of your support and being with us along our journey of expansion. I hope you enjoy the Aspire Academy by Soulivity today. Start the process. Learn more about your passion, your purpose, and how to live a higher quality life. And we're back with more of Soulivity Today. We're talking about the Ohio special election and what it means for America. And, we're in our last segment here and just want to try to talk about specifically, what are some final thoughts that you guys have about this? We kind of talked a little bit about the volatility of the whole issue itself. And I was starting to talk about like the religious aspect, but do you guys have any other thoughts around this that people need to know from your perspective? And Chanel, I'll go to you first.
Well, Brian, this is a topic to where, again, it's a reminder that you have to be aware, even if you're not all the way involved politically, things can slip right up under you. And I think about an analogy that I heard that made sense to me, and I want to share it with you. And it's simply, if you put red ants and black ants in a jar, and you just leave them alone, not too much is going to happen. But if you have somebody at the base of the jar and shakes the jar, then the red and the black ants start to fight each other. And so is it that, we've people at the top with the wealth, with the political power in some regards, that shaking the jar and they're agitating one group against another, whether it's religion, abortion, gun, racial tension. If we were left alone, would it be love and harmony? I don't know. Have someone agitating, not even involved, just simply agitating and watching, just watching, the people fight each other. Where does that really lead us? And so when we talk about civility and respect and, having agency and having the rights and the freedom for all voices be heard, we've got to realize who's shaking the jar and what is our role in moving things forward in a progressive way that's a benefit to us all, but not fighting each other and realizing who the fight really should be with. Right.
And real quickly, Sheila, what about you?
Yeah, I agree 100% with Dr. Chanel. This jar is being shook every day, and we are the ants in the jar. We have to admit it. We want to think that we're the ones that aren't being affected, but we are. And so we have to be diligent and remember and stop fighting against each other over topics that are just distracting us from reclaiming our own inner authority.
Right. Well, listen, great show today, great topic. We're running a little bit over time, so I'm going to get to our Soulivity shameless plugs. Sheila, you've got a great thing coming up on this Saturday with fractal illumination, correct?
Yes, we're having our fractal illumination gathering this Saturday, which is an energy activation that helps you adjust to these chaotic times. So very needed. I can't wait for it this time. It is in person in the Syracuse, New York area. You can see it on my website, but it is also available for you to receive no matter where you are in the world. So check it out. And we have a special way for you to receive those energies during the group, even if you aren't here local.
Excellent. And Dr. Chanel, as always, you have some wonderful complimentary coaching sessions. Can you give people really quickly about those? Tell people about those.
Really quick, Brian, I'm going to use Sheila's word. You want inner authority? You need to get on a phone call with me and Let's out. Give me a call so we can
Nice.
set up a complimentary coaching session. Thanks,
I
Mike.
love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And as always, we want you to follow us on social media and also go to our Soulivity Today website at soulivity.com/Soulivity Today, where you can learn more about our shows. You can even listen to our previous broadcast because it's a podcast as well. And so please go there and check them out. Guys, thank you so much for being here and talking about this. I know these topics get a little intense sometimes. But we need to talk about these things. I like how both of you kind of put this forward where our voices are power. We have to stay knowledgeable about what's happening in our world. We can't expect other people to do that for us. And so, be curious, read different kind of sources and stay up on what's happening, because there are people of lower consciousness out here that don't care about you in that way. And that will, as Chanel, you said, will shake that jar and get people fighting while they're over, stealing lollipops and candy and other stuff. And so just be aware of that. Be aware of that and empower yourself. Listen, on behalf of all of us here at Soulivity Today, I want to thank you for joining us for this episode. This is how we do it every single day, where we're bringing you topics and issues and content that empowers you with real conversations. You can join us every weekday at 8 a.m. Eastern for our live broadcast here on Soulivity TV, or you can listen to us at 8 a.m. Pacific time in Southern California, and for all of you guys out on the West Coast on KMET 1490 AM radio. Listen, until next time, keep on having real conversations with passion and power, and create your best life today. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.
This work is subject to copyright owned by Affinity Global LLC. Any reproduction or republication of all or part of this is expressly prohibited unless Affinity Global LLC has explicitly granted its prior written consent.